You see, great leadership isn't about having all the answers on day one. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe enough to admit they don't know something. When we build that psychological safety, what if I told you that your greatest superpower isn't how loud you speak, how fast you move, or how hard you fight, but how calm you remain when everything around you is trying to shake you? What if I told you that your strength doesn't lie in how many battles you win, but in how many you've learned to walk away from, untouched, unbothered, and fully in control? In a world that thrives on reactions, outrage, and chaos, imagine becoming the kind of person who doesn't flinch, who doesn't fold, who doesn't give their energy to nonsense. This isn't about being emotionless, it's about being unstoppable. This is for the ones tired of being triggered by everything. This is for the ones ready to reclaim their peace, protect their energy, and finally rise above the noise. If you've ever been misunderstood, manipulated, drained, or doubted, stay right here, because this message will shift the way you see yourself and the way you respond to life. It's time to train yourself to get unbothered. Stay with me until the end. Because by the time this video is over, you'll be armed with the mindset, the clarity, and the inner strength to walk through anything without losing yourself. Let's begin. You can't control what you don't understand. Recognizing your emotional triggers is the first step to becoming unbothered. Most people try to avoid or suppress their feelings, thinking that if they don't acknowledge them, they can stay in control. But what actually happens is the opposite. Those buried emotions leak out, often in the form of overreactions, anxiety, or passive aggression. The person who lashes out over a small inconvenience isn't reacting to the moment, they're reacting to an unresolved pattern. And the only way to break the pattern is to face it, study it, and understand it. We all have emotional triggers, those moments, words, or actions that set us off. Maybe it's being ignored. Maybe it's being criticized. Maybe it's being told no. These triggers aren't random. They're rooted in our past, how we were raised, what we lacked, the wounds we carry. When someone pushes one of these emotional buttons, it feels deeply personal, even if it wasn't meant that way. That's because our brains connect present experiences with past pain. So we don't just feel upset, we feel attacked, dismissed, rejected, or invisible. But here's the thing. The person in front of you didn't create that pain. They just revealed it. This is why emotional self-awareness is the foundation of being unbothered. When you take the time to understand what sets you off and why, you start reclaiming your power. You realize that the emotion isn't the problem, it's the lack of understanding behind the emotion that makes you unstable. The more you observe your emotional patterns, the less control they have over you. You begin to notice every time someone questions my ideas, I feel defensive. Why? Or when I don't get a response right away, I feel ignored. Where does that come from? These reflections aren't weaknesses, they're signs of strength, because only a strong mind is brave enough to examine itself. Emotional triggers are teachers. They expose where we still have healing to do, they shine light on the parts of us we try to hide. And the more honest you are with yourself about your internal responses, the less reactive you become to the external world. Instead of being pushed around by every emotion, you become a grounded observer of your own experience. You start making choices from clarity rather than compulsion. That's what it means to be unbothered, not cold, not detached, but emotionally intelligent enough to know when something is about you and when it's not. Understanding your emotional triggers doesn't mean you'll never be upset again. It means you won't be ruled by what you feel. You'll still get angry, disappointed, or frustrated, but you'll catch yourself. You'll notice what's happening internally and decide how to respond. That moment of conscious choice is where your real strength lies. You stop being a prisoner of your past and become a participant in your growth. This self-awareness builds confidence, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't flinch when criticized, the kind that doesn't need to react to be seen. The kind that walks away not out of fear, but out of freedom. There's no shortcut to emotional mastery. It takes courage to look within and ask yourself the hard questions. It takes maturity to accept what you find without judgment. And it takes daily practice to remain present when your instincts scream for protection. But if you commit to this inner work slowly but surely, you train yourself to be calm in the chaos, centered in the conflict, and unbothered by the noise. Reacting is instinctive, responding is intentional. This single distinction separates those who live in emotional chaos from those who live with clarity. Reacting is what happens when we allow our emotions to drive the car. Something is said, something is done, and without a moment's thought, we snap. We yell. We withdraw. We lash out. It's automatic. It's raw. And it almost always makes things worse. Reactions are survival mechanisms, built for speed, not wisdom. But we're not animals trying to survive the jungle. We're people trying to thrive in relationships, careers, and a world full of unpredictable moments. That requires more than instinct. It requires intention. Every time we react without thinking, we give away our power. We become victims of our own impulsiveness, and while the reaction might feel good in the moment, like releasing pressure from a boiling pot, it often creates regret afterward. We say things we don't mean, we damage trust, we create distance. And over time our relationships become shaped not by love or respect, but by emotional landmines. People start walking on eggshells, not because they don't care, but because they don't know what version of us they'll get. That's the cost of reactive living. It makes us unreliable, even to ourselves. Responding is different. Responding requires a pause. It requires presence. When you respond, you don't act from emotion. You act with emotion. You acknowledge what you feel, but you don't let it decide for you. The moment you pause before speaking or acting, you create space, and in that space you gain control. Control over your voice, control over your actions, control over the story you're telling. That space between stimulus and response is where emotional maturity is born. Most people are not trained to pause. We are conditioned to match energy. If someone is rude, we're rude back. If someone criticizes us, we get defensive. If someone ignores us, we pull away. But when you're ruled by reaction, you're not living freely. You're living as a mirror. You reflect whatever comes at you, and mirrors don't lead. They don't create. They don't influence. They just echo. Training yourself to respond rather than react is not about being passive. It's about being strategic. It's about knowing that every situation is a choice, not just of words, but of energy. And when you operate from a place of intention, you stop letting people and problems write your narrative. You take ownership of how you show up, no matter the circumstance. This doesn't mean you suppress how you feel. It means you become fluent in your emotions, without being dominated by them. You learn to name your emotion, sit with it, understand it, and then decide what to do with it. You may still choose to speak firmly. You may still set a boundary, but it will come from a place of calm clarity, not emotional chaos. That's the difference between being controlled by emotion and being guided by wisdom. When you choose to respond, you elevate the conversation, you rise above pettiness, you create room for solutions, and perhaps most importantly, you protect your peace. Because peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict, it comes from managing it well. You can't always predict what life will throw at you, but you can train how you show up when it does. And over time, as the pause becomes natural, as the space between feeling and acting becomes familiar, you'll notice something powerful. You're no longer thrown off course by every storm. You're no longer chasing respect through reactions. You're grounded, intentional, unbothered, detached from what doesn't define you. So much of our stress, anxiety, and inner tension comes from giving meaning to things that were never meant to shape our identity. We confuse criticism with truth. We mistake rejection for personal failure. We internalize negativity that was never ours to carry. And when we do that, we allow outside noise to rewrite our self-worth. But the truth is, most of what bothers us doesn't belong to us. It's simply passing through. Training yourself to become unbothered means learning to observe without absorbing. It means learning to say, "This isn't mine," and letting it go. There's a powerful freedom in realizing that not everything deserves your emotional investment. When someone criticizes you, it might reflect more about their insecurities than your reality. When someone ignores you, it might say more about their distractions than your worth. But the moment you take it personally, you've handed them the pen and let them start writing your story. Emotional detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring selectively. It's about knowing the difference between what matters and what merely passes by. You are not every comment made about you. You are not every look, every silence, every misunderstanding, and you are not responsible for how others interpret your growth, your boundaries, or your silence. What you are responsible for is your reaction. The way you choose to carry yourself in moments of misunderstanding, that's where your strength is tested. And that's where detachment becomes your armor, not to protect your ego, but to preserve your peace. To live unbothered is not to be indifferent. It is to be deeply intentional. It is to say, I will not be pulled into drama that doesn't reflect my values. I will not explain myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. I will not let someone's bad day dictate the temperature of mine. It's not always easy. Our minds crave validation. Our egos want to be right, to be heard, to be understood. But the discipline of detachment teaches you that not everything requires a response, not every insult needs a comeback. Sometimes your silence is the loudest and most powerful answer. When you stop identifying with things that don't define you, you take your power back. You stop being a sponge for the world's negativity. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop chasing closure from people who never respected your boundaries in the first place. You begin to understand that your peace is not found in fixing everything, it's found in filtering what you allow to affect you. You develop emotional filters the way you develop mental ones. Just as you wouldn't believe every thought that crosses your mind, you stop believing every feeling that enters your heart. Feelings are valid, but they are not verdicts. Detachment doesn't mean detaching from people, it means detaching from the need for constant approval. It means knowing who you are so deeply that other people's confusion doesn't make you question yourself. It means being grounded enough to listen without absorbing, to care without carrying, to be aware without becoming overwhelmed. You start to live with emotional clarity. You know what's yours, and you know what isn't. You stop reacting to projections. You stop answering to assumptions. You stop carrying labels that were never written by your truth. And when you reach that place, things that once triggered you now teach you. Words that once wounded you now remind you of your resilience. Situations that once shook you now show you how far you've come. You're not bitter. You're not detached from life. You're simply not defined by what was never meant to hold power over you in the first place. You don't need to win every battle. In fact, trying to win every battle is the fastest way to lose yourself. Life is full of moments that challenge our pride, provoke our ego, and test our patience. And if you feel the need to engage in every one of them, to prove your point, to defend your name, to make someone see your value, you'll burn out chasing a kind of validation that never really satisfies. The truth is, maturity isn't shown by how many battles you win, but by how many you choose to walk away from, because you've learned that peace is far more valuable than being right. The desire to win every argument, or correct every misconception, often comes from insecurity, not strength. It's rooted in the fear that if you don't speak up, you'll be misunderstood, that if you don't correct them, they'll get away with something. But that mindset keeps you reactive and emotionally drained. You become stuck in a cycle of constantly responding, constantly proving, constantly defending. You don't gain respect this way, you lose your center. Real confidence is quiet. It's not obsessed with being seen, heard, or validated. It knows what it is, and it lets others think what they want, because it no longer needs their agreement to feel whole. There's a kind of power in restraint. When someone throws a verbal jab, and you don't swing back, when someone provokes you, and you choose silence instead of reaction, that's not weakness, it's control. It's recognizing that your energy is too valuable to waste on meaningless conflict. Every argument you avoid, every insult you ignore, every chance to fight that you let go of, isn't a loss, it's a win for your peace. And peace is never accidental, it's intentional. It requires discipline, clarity, and a refusal to let every offense find a home inside your soul. People will test you. Some will misunderstand your boundaries. Others will mistake your calm for weakness. But none of that matters if you know who you are. If you know your values, your mission, and your worth, then their opinions can't control your emotional climate. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to pick up every stone thrown your way. Some things are better left unacknowledged, because your silence speaks louder than any defense you could give. It says, I'm not here to compete with noise. I'm here to protect my peace. There's wisdom in choosing your battles. Not everything deserves your time. Not everything deserves your voice. Some situations are just distractions dressed as confrontation. They pull you in, get you emotionally invested, and leave you depleted. And for what? To prove something to someone who probably wasn't listening in the first place. That's not strength, that's survival mode. And you weren't made to survive every day. You were made to thrive, to build, to grow, to lead. That requires you to protect your focus, not constantly defend your identity. Letting go of battles doesn't mean you're passive or weak. It means you're strategic. You've learned to rise above not because you don't care, but because you care more about your long-term peace than short-term pride. It means you've realized your energy is a currency, and not every situation deserves a withdrawal. You've trained yourself to ask, is this worth it? Before diving in. And more often than not, the answer is no. You can still stand your ground. You can still set boundaries. You can still speak your truth, but you don't need to fight every time. You can let some people be wrong about you. You can let some things go unresolved. That's not giving up. That's rising above. Because sometimes the real win is in walking away with your peace intact, your dignity unshaken, and your purpose still burning bright. Protect your peace like it's your most valuable asset. Because it is. In a world constantly pulling you in 1,000 directions, your inner peace is the one thing that allows you to move with clarity, intention, and strength. Without it, you're scattered, reactive, overwhelmed. With it, you're grounded, focused, and resilient. But peace doesn't just happen. It's not something you stumble into. It's something you create and fiercely defend. And that starts with understanding that not everyone and not everything deserves access to your emotional space. Your peace is affected by what you tolerate. The conversations you engage in, the content you consume, the people you surround yourself with, all of it either builds or breaks your internal calm. If you're always feeling anxious, triggered, or depleted, it's worth asking what doors you've left open. Who are you letting speak into your life? What opinions are you giving power to? What distractions have you convinced yourself are necessary? Protecting your peace means learning to say no, not out of coldness, but out of commitment. Commitment to your growth. Commitment to your purpose. Commitment to your mental and emotional well-being. People will ask for your time. They'll want your energy. They'll pull at your attention. But not everyone asking deserves a yes. Some people bring chaos everywhere they go. Some conversations leave you more confused than clear. Some habits steal your focus and replace it with restlessness. Protecting your peace means having the discipline to walk away from what doesn't serve you, even when it's familiar, even when it's comfortable. Because not everything you're used to is good for you, and not everyone who has access to you has earned the right to stay. Peace requires boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors with locks. They don't shut people out, they simply filter what comes in. And if someone takes your boundaries personally, it's usually because they benefited from you having none. When you start protecting your peace, people might not understand. They might think you've changed. They might accuse you of being distant, difficult, or selfish. But remember, your responsibility is not to be understood by everyone. Your responsibility is to be faithful to the life you're building. And sometimes that means protecting your emotional energy, like your future depends on it, because it does. You can't be everything for everyone. You can't respond to every message, fix every problem, absorb every emotion. Trying to do so isn't noble, it's self-abandonment. When you sacrifice your peace to maintain appearances or keep others comfortable, you pay a high price: your clarity, your joy, your sense of self. You end up living reactively, constantly adjusting to external pressure instead of living from internal alignment. But when you protect your peace, you operate from a place of power. You stop letting circumstances decide your mood. You stop letting people pull you into battles that aren't yours. You stop trading your stability for temporary acceptance. Your peace is your compass. It tells you when something is right, when something is off, when something needs to change. And if you ignore it long enough, your life starts feeling noisy, chaotic, heavy. But when you honor it, when you slow down, quiet the noise and listen, you begin to move differently. You speak with more clarity. You choose with more confidence. You show up with more intention. That's the kind of power that can't be faked. It comes from within. It's not loud, but it's unshakable. In protecting your peace, you teach others how to treat you. You show them that your time, your energy, your focus are not to be wasted. And you teach yourself that you are worthy of a life that feels whole, not constantly torn apart by chaos or expectation. Peace isn't passive. It's a daily decision, a courageous one. And when you begin to make it a priority, everything around you starts to change. Not because the world gets quieter, but because you've gotten stronger. Learn the art of emotional neutrality. This isn't about becoming cold, numb, or detached from life. It's about gaining the wisdom to stay steady regardless of what's happening around you. Emotional neutrality is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. It's knowing how to stand in the storm without letting it shake your core. In a world where everything is a trigger, and every reaction is amplified, emotional neutrality is power. It's the quiet strength that helps you navigate conflict, change, and chaos with clarity instead of collapse. When something doesn't go your way, your initial emotional response is often intense. You feel anger, disappointment, fear, or frustration. That's normal. Emotions are signals. But being emotionally neutral means you don't let those first signals become your final decisions. You don't let one bad moment dictate your entire mood. You don't let a negative comment spiral into self-doubt. You observe the feeling, You acknowledge it, but you don't let it hijack your behavior. You don't let it become your identity. This gives you the power to respond instead of react, to lead yourself instead of being led by impulses. We live in a culture that celebrates extreme emotions. Outrage gets the clicks. Drama draws the attention. But that kind of constant emotional intensity is exhausting. It keeps you on edge. It clouds your thinking. It makes you a prisoner of every external circumstance. Emotional neutrality is the opposite. It gives you the space to choose what deserves your energy, and what doesn't. You stop being pulled into every high and low. You develop the ability to breathe, assess, and decide. That's not apathy. It's mastery. It's the result of emotional discipline. This level of strength is developed through self-awareness and intentional practice. It means noticing your triggers before they control you. It means having the humility to pause before speaking. It means recognizing when your response is about the current situation, or an old wound being reactivated. You begin to separate what's real from what's emotional noise. You stop assuming every feeling is a fact. You stop assuming every offense requires action. You realize that sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing, not out of weakness, but because you've learned to value inner stability over temporary release. Emotional neutrality is especially important in leadership. Whether you're leading others, leading a family, or simply leading yourself. People who stay calm in pressure-filled environments become anchors. They create safety. They become the ones others turn to, not because they have all the answers, but because their energy is consistent. They're not explosive, they're not erratic, they're steady. And that steadiness is what makes them trustworthy. People trust those who don't lose themselves when things get hard. This kind of emotional strength doesn't mean you won't feel. It means you learn to feel wisely. You allow yourself to grieve, to celebrate, to reflect, but you do so with intention. You don't let those feelings make decisions on your behalf. You create a filter between your emotions and your actions. That filter is built on awareness, maturity, and restraint. It's not something that comes overnight. It's built one pause at a time, one moment of clarity over reaction, one choice to respond differently, even when your old self would have erupted. In emotional neutrality, you find freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of everything that happens to you. You can hear criticism without crumbling. You can face setbacks without spiraling. You can encounter conflict without escalating. This isn't suppression, it's transformation. It's turning your emotional volatility into quiet confidence. It's the strength to remain calm in the fire, not because you feel nothing, but because you've trained yourself to feel with wisdom. And that kind of discipline is what separates those who lead their lives from those who are led by life. And when it's all said and done, remember this: your true strength isn't proven by how loud you can shout, how fast you can fight, or how many people you can outsmart. It's proven in how unshakable you can become in the face of pressure, chaos, and noise. You weren't built to crumble every time someone pushes a button. You were created to lead, to influence, and to protect the peace within you that no one else can give or take away. Train yourself to get unbothered, not by becoming disconnected, but by becoming deeply rooted. Rooted in self-respect. Rooted in discipline. Rooted in purpose. Let the world do what it does. Let people say what they say. You don't have to answer every challenge. You don't have to engage every attack. The greatest power is found in your ability to stay calm, stay focused, and keep moving forward. Let go of the urge to react. Walk away from what doesn't serve you. Stand tall in your quiet strength. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your impact begins. Thank you for watching this message. If it challenged you, strengthened you, or helped you see yourself differently, share it with someone else who needs it too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join this journey of becoming unshakable, one mindset at a time. Until next time, stay grounded, stay powerful, and stay unbothered.